as I was saying, good morning or good afternoon, depending where you are joining this event from. We wait just for a couple of minutes to also to leave other colleagues to join, and we will kick off the event. Thank you for joining. So good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining and welcome to this event about cash and voucher assistance, environment and climate change workshop that is organized by CAP Network and DJ ECHO. So under the umbrella of the existing cash and environment and climate change community of practice that is currently led and hosted by the CAP Network. Well, I'm Jose Joda. I'm CAP Network Technical Advisor, and today we'll be exploring and discussing different opportunities related to how cash and voucher assistance can further contribute to fight against climate change and environmental degradation. How CVA could be also a positive factor when we try to reduce the carbon footprint of the humanitarian response, or also how cash and voucher assistance can be also an effective modality response to natural disaster, related crises, and finally to fight against climate change causes and negative effects. These discussions today includes also speaking about existing initiatives and guidelines, what are the current opportunities for this space, how this can be maybe pushed forward into commitments within also the humanitarian community. So many thanks for joining this event. Some housekeeping rules. This event will last 90 minutes in total. The event is not a webinar. This is quite important. Is a workshop. So we expect to get your participation, especially when we go into the breakout rooms. You can use the chat, obviously, to introduce yourself, and also in case you have any specific questions, or also you would like to share any key information from your side or your organization. Please keep during the whole workshop, keep your microphones muted and raise your hand before unmuting them, no? Because obviously you can also participate, but you need to raise your hand before, so we can give some order. The event will be recorded and shared online after the event, once we're finalized, with all the people that participated, but also with all that are registered to the workshop. The agenda, as you can see here in this slide, is divided in two main sections, as follows. In the first section, we'll be showing some key information with all of you. There will be an introduction to this topic done by the Red Cross Red Crescent Climate Center. Then from the CAP Network, we'll be presenting some findings about CVA policy commitments in cash assistance, CVA, and climate change. And finally, from ECHO will be presenting also how CVA, environment, and climate change is considered within ECHO policies and operations. The second section, as I was commenting in the beginning, is more a workshop mode, where we'll be divided into three breakout rooms, depending in fact on your choice where you were registered to the event. In those breakout rooms, we will be discussing these three key topics, no, that you can see here. Each breakout room will be facilitated by one person, and then after the group discussion that will last for around 30 minutes, there will be a plenary in order to wrap up and also to close the event. Now, without any more delay, I would like to give the floor to Julia Arrighi, that will be providing an introduction to the topic from the climate change perspective and opening this event. Julie is Associate Director of the Red Cross Red Crescent Climate Center, a technical team focused on advancing climate policy, science, and practice. Julie is also climate-led for the American Red Cross International Services. So Julie, it's a real pleasure to have you here with us, and over to you.
Thank you, Jose. Really, really lovely to be here. And thank you so much for the invitation to the Climate Center to come and participate in this event. And good morning and good afternoon or evening to everyone who's here. I think this topic is so crucial, and there's a lot of really great overlaps that exist between the CVA space and the climate change space, and that makes this workshop really timely to document those experiences, to be able to share and scale them as well. And when I think about this, I can see those overlaps, as I'm sure many of you can as well, across all three of the big pillars of climate change, right? There's the emissions reduction and environmental sustainability piece, where Cash can play an important role in providing messaging on environmentally sustainable options, maybe top-ups to existing transfers to cover any price differences for sustainable options, or vendor selection and voucher programming. On the adaptation side, or responding to the impacts of climate change, there's just immense opportunity from so many perspectives. As disasters become more frequent, intense, and volatile, there's the anticipatory action agenda that has grown to try to tackle that challenge that the humanitarian system faces by bringing early warning and early action together in a more concrete way through standard operating procedures and early action protocols to ensure that early warning can lead to early action. And in that context, Cash is such an important option to help deliver that ambition. In the Red Cross or Crescent, for example, approximately 20 of the early action protocols that exist across the world already include provisions for cash assistance, which is a great indication of that growing interest, and hopefully we'll see that scale even further. And cash is so important as well from the localization perspective of climate change, making sure that the investments that are being made globally around adapting to climate change are really reaching the most vulnerable and the most local levels, and getting outside of capitals and countries is really key. And Cash provides some of the best options for that from an agency perspective for people that are trying to adapt to climate change. And then, of course, there's the scale up and intersection into social protection systems, which becomes really crucial, trying to look at adaptive social protection systems where we can really take Cash to scale and provide many lessons from the humanitarian system into that. So all of these lessons and experiences that we talked about today are so important in that scaling question, as well as integrating into donor policies, what works well, or even from the humanitarian actor perspective, integrating considerations into, for example, commitments such as the Climate and Environment Charter, which many humanitarian organizations have signed on to already. And then on that third pillar of climate change, just to quickly mention it, I think even in the loss and damage space, which of course has been growing over many years and had important milestones in the most recent COP, I think the humanitarian experience with Cash and Voucher Assistance can bring really interesting lessons into how that future space is shaped from the mechanisms perspective. And so lessons such that come out of the workshop today can really be valuable to consider in those ongoing conversations that will certainly happen over the course of at least the next few years into how the loss and damage space can be shaped to really, again, bring that most vulnerable person's perspective into the conversation and how to effectively reach. So I'll leave it there, but really looking forward to the discussion. I think there's so many different angles, and this is only the smallest snapshot of the different angles that could be taken. And so looking forward to hearing everybody's perspectives on this. Thank you, Jose.
Many thanks, Julie, for this really key insight coming especially from the climate change perspective. So and also the role that humanitarian practitioners, humanitarian agencies, and especially also cash assistance and voucher agencies can also have as a role. So thank you very much, and yeah, we will continue the discussion now. I would like to give the floor to Kate Hart, Head of Policy, Learning and Evidence at the CAP Network, that will be providing, as part of a more ambitious research about CVA policy commitments, some insight about the current state of the policy commitments in the CVA environment and climate change space. So over to you, Kate, and many thanks, of course, for being here supporting this event today.
Thank you, Jose, and apologies in advance if my voice goes on me. I've got a bit of a heavy cold at the moment. Okay, so we in the summer embarked on 2 pieces of research. There's a sister piece of research. So I've just been muted by someone, I think. A sister piece of research to the one I am about to present, which is on scaling CVA. This is the other research, which is looking at CVA policy commitments, where next, so the evolving landscape of cash and voucher policies. If we go on to the next slide, thank you very much. So the reports, both reports with a policy brief as well, are going to be published tomorrow. So watch your space in terms of that. And what we're planning on doing next year is to do a lot more policy engagement around the findings of the 2 sister reports. So please, next year there'll be lots, we'll be communicating on them, and please do engage with them if particularly the climate and environment side of things is of interest to you. So I guess a key question for us today is, how do the global policy commitments, including those regarding climate and environment, affect your work? Maybe that's kind of a framing piece for us, and maybe for the conversation kind of going forward. The background to the research, which is coming out tomorrow, is as we all know, many of the global policy commitments made in 2015-16 are coming to an end. They need to be renewed, and a lot has changed since then as well, kind of 7 years on. So the CALC Commission research, the objectives of it were to map the CVA policy commitments and priorities that exist now in 2022, to look at the commitments of old and any new emerging ones that are developing, just to see if we can identify, through our engagement with different stakeholders and actors, areas of potential collective action. One of the things that we were looking at as a new and emerging one is actually the climate and environment. Other things that we were looking at, I think there's no surprises, but for example, locally led response, linkages with social protection, the scale of CVA, many others as well. I think sort of 17 different areas that we looked at, but one of them was the commitment to climate and environment. So we've gone to the next slide. I'll share very briefly some of the key findings. And as I said, the report itself is coming out tomorrow, along with the sister report and a policy briefing as well. So what is very, very interesting, and this does seem to be a new emerging area of interest for the people that we spoke to, and people were a little bit uncertain as to what that meant. But all key informants that we spoke to stress the importance of climate and environment, perhaps not unsurprisingly, given what's happening in the world. As I've put on this PowerPoint, key informants called it a big thing, of the utmost importance, an overarching umbrella of all the work that they're doing. However, currently it is rarely mentioned directly in guidance documents as a CVA, rarely mentioned in guidance documents as a tool to mitigate the impact of climate change. So it's sort of when this research was undertaken a couple of months ago. One school, I won't go through this PowerPoint verbatim, but I'll give some of the examples which seem to have popped out of the PowerPoint, Jose. Thank you. So one school of thought said that yes, it would be very, very useful to collectively think through this topic as a community, to see where there is a potential for collective action. Other groups of people felt that actually we need to figure it out internally ourselves for our individual specific agency as what we want to achieve in this area before we can embark on a collective process. But basically everyone saying utmost importance and wanting to look at it. And then maybe just to make a note on anticipatory action as well, which was looked at separately from climate environment in this piece of research. It was also identified as a very high priority by a large number of actors. And that some, again, maybe unsurprisingly, key informants saw that there was a strong potential in bringing together the agendas for CVA and the agendas for anticipatory action. So that's a teaser. The reports are coming out tomorrow. The report on the landscape around current commitments to CVA in policies, sister report as well around scaling CVA. So please do watch this space, and early next year we'll be starting a kind of engagement process around the various findings of the report. So yeah, please do watch out for that as well. But it's lovely to be here today, and I can't wait for the discussions that we continue to have. So many thanks. Jose, back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Kate, for this teaser. and then, I mean, some of the aspects that obviously you mentioned, surprisingly, there is a lot of interest in anticipatory action, and then also the need, to continue to further define, the what we mean by this space and how commitments are also needed, in this CVA environment and climate change space. Well, thank you very much. Finally, for this first section of the event, we have now with us Judith Muniao, that joined ECHO since 2013 in various capacities, and now she's DJ ECHO Regional Program Officer and Food Assistance and Cash, based in Nairobi. And we also have with us Anya Piljevek, also based in Nairobi, in Kenya, and with more than 12 years experience in the humanitarian sector, and working now as a global technical expert in environmental sustainability for DJ ECHO, focusing especially on the development and of strategies aimed at reducing the negative environmental impact of the aid sector. Both of them will be presenting here CVA, environment and climate change in eco policies and operations. So thank you very much for joining this event and for this really good presentation, right? So bear with me just 1 second, because I need to share your presentation.
Thank you so much, Jose. Let me jump in as you prepare the presentation. And also thank you so much to Julie, hearing about the Red Cross perspectives, and also to Kate, hearing about the research, and also understanding now it's not only us that are also struggling to find the niche and where to anchor issues of climate change and the greening agenda within our cash policy, but not only the cash policy, but also the overall ECHO programming. So as Jose said, my name's Judith. I'm also based in the Nairobi regional office. Jose, is the presentation coming in? I hope so. Perfect. So I will present the first part of the presentation, which is focused on the cash policy, which was rolled out in this year, actually March 2022. So I am hoping that almost all of you have seen and read it and already putting it into practice, but also just to provide the key highlights that are within the policy, and then hand over to Anya Tanzania to look more in deeper into the linkages and where we see opportunities for environment. Next slide, please. So what is new in the policy? I'm hoping that what is new is not new as such, and that you already know it. Next slide, please, just to look more into details into what is new in more briefly also. So as we have already disseminated to a lot of your colleagues, also I also recognize a lot of names participating in this forum today. So this document, it was actually a lot of work based on evidence that has been collected from our ECO partners on ground. So we would want to and continue to claim it's a comprehensive document based on evidence of what we have seen, what are the learning, what is working, what is not working, and various discussions we have had with partners, also with beneficiaries, but also amongst ourselves and colleagues also within house, within the commission, but also with other donors. So we think it's quite comprehensive. It is a large document, but the idea was to have all the guidance that we thought was useful in one roof, or rather in one document. And as you have also realized, there's a lot of focus on cash as opposed to the previous policy for 2013, which was cash and vouchers. And the focus on cash here, it's really because what we have collected, rather the evidence, has really shown us that cash has more preference in terms of efficiency gains. So in terms of looking at the comparative advantage, we really see and preference the use of cash within programming, or rather response for humanitarian assistance. Again, it's also promotes linkages between cash and social protection. And here is also aspects of targeting, looking at the transfer values and interoperability in moving more towards shock responsive social protection. The other point also clearly in the policy, it's about innovation and aspects of taking advantage of digitalization. I think it's pretty not new in a lot of the context, even in a very remote context, to see the role that is coming up in terms of looking at the issues of digitalization. And here are also opportunities to see how we could also make the digital environment into more environmental friendly decisions in our decisions for response. So again, we hope that in the breakout sessions we'll be able to look into these issues more deeply. Again, on market support and cash group cash transfer, which is not new, but it's also an aspect that is also emphasized in the policy, but more towards the livelihood support. Again, taking advantage of digitalization is the issue of interoperability, but not forgetting aspects of data protection, which is very important and key in this area of digitalization, and also making sure that how we exchange data and how we use data, we take into account the interests of beneficiaries. As was also mentioned by Kate, in terms of where there are also opportunities in terms of the use of cash, we have also identified that rather the policies also looking into issues of emergency response mechanism, anticipatory action, and I think just to underline here from what we heard from Katie, that there seems to be some opportunities here to link aspects of climate change and the use of cash and vouchers. Again, on crisis modifiers, which is an element that also the policy looks into, and all this also also both in humanitarian context, but also for protracted responses. Last, but again, on another point here, it's also linked to the linkages with other humanitarian reforms and policy development. Here is to take into account aspects of accountability, aspects of localization, etc., etc. Last but not least on this slide is also the commitment that within the EU is there on the greening agenda, and then of course how do we break down that into terms of greening the humanitarian assistance. So again, this might not be very clear in the policy itself, but it's a topic that as ECHO we are interested to hear more from our partners, what works, what doesn't work, and how what aspects we should take into account going forward. Next slide, please, Joseph. Okay, so in terms of the overview of the policy, that it's structured in various topics or chapters. 6 of them, as you see on the numbered points on the side of the slide. But also just to say that the overview of the policy is that first it really does target the Commission staff, but also our partners as our main audience, and we see it as not only a policy but also guidance, and it also has a checklist which goes beyond the policy but more in-depth analysis of what questions, what issues to look for when you're doing you're designing your responses, and actually throughout the action cycle or rather the project cycle. And again, the policy again applies to all cash programs that are funded or co-funded by ECHO. So meaning that even if we have partners that have received funding from another donor, whether it's USAID or FCDO, but also there are requesting for co-funding from ECHO, we also do expect that our policy is also taken into consideration. So not going into more details in all this, I mean, just to emphasize on the outcomes. So again, here the nexus is a big topic, but it's also of interest to us, and also realizing that as humanitarian, we do have opportunities within the humanitarian cash to really have linkages, or rather more a system approach in strengthening local capacities and also looking at durable solutions, but also this could also include the aspects of environment. Again, on the issue again of targeting the most vulnerable, again, we continue to be a need-based donor, so we also need to look at what are the most, who is the most affected and who really needs support. But also, so for us, this is very, very important. Again, aspects of adequate and timely and equitable response. Here, timeliness and also having more anticipatory responses is very key to make sure that the cash is provided at the time when it's needed, and providing value for money, but also not compromising on quality. So here it's really to optimize the issues of efficiency and effectiveness, accountability again, and again also to, I know we've been talking about accountability to beneficiaries or recipients, accountability to donors, but also accountability now to the environment. We need to think what are the implications of the responses that we are designing, regardless of the modality. And the last topic we also have in the policy is related to measurement. And here it's really about the monitoring of the outcome, whether it's through PDMs or looking at how the response is being used, what are the intended or unintended impact, but also including aspects of environment. Next one, please. So this is my last slide, and then I hand over to Anya. So in terms of the cash and the environment, we are not in a position to say that cash is the best suited modality in terms of environmental sustainability. So of course, that evidence, we don't have it, and we are also willing to listen, to hear your perspectives. So I mean, for us, we're looking at it as a collective engagement to find what is the most suitable, what are the feasible interventions that we could already incorporate in the interventions that we are doing for cash and assistance, and also for other sectors going forward. So without further ado, I would like to invite Anya, please. Thanks.
Thank you, Judith, and thank you to all of the colleagues at CAL. Can you go to the next slide, Jose? Yes. So Judith already mentioned the greening efforts we are doing at DG ECHO. So just briefly, what does it mean, greening of humanitarian response, and why we are doing it? So what we mean by greening is basically just to make the humanitarian responses that we fund more effective, more efficient, and more sustainable on the longer term. Can you go to the next slide, Jose, please? The idea is really to rethink a little bit how we do things with the aim of delivering a better response for the affected population. So there is, it will not be from now on focus only on the environment or only on climate change, but we really want to mainstream these considerations throughout the proposals that we fund, with really the goal to adhere to our most important principle, which is the do no harm, which has been proven by now that also by incorporating these environmental considerations, we actually add a quite important bit to this very important principle. Next. So why did we develop the minimum environmental requirements? So these are basically a set of standards that DG ECHO has rolled out this year and will come into under implementation as of the next programming cycle. Those are basically a set of standards with the aim to incorporate the environmental considerations under different sectors, different activities, and different proposals, and are basically just meant to guide anyone applying to our funding in producing more sustainable project in the end. Next. So as explained, the first and the most important reason why is to really adhere to the do no harm principle, which obliges us to prevent and mitigate any negative impact that we can have on the affected populations and the territories where they live. We know that incomes and livelihoods are being affected by the negative effects of climate change, by environmental degradation. Hence, by reducing those impacts, we are also making the affected populations more resilient on the longer term. Considering these environmental aspects will also reduce ours and our partners' operational risks, and will of course contribute to the capacity building of the affected populations in managing many different risks that they face because of climate change, but not only, on a daily basis. And finally, enhancing our environmental responsibility will also increase resource efficiency in the responses that we implement. Next. Yes, with our requirements at DGECO, we are going with the mainstreaming approach. As said, the environmental impacts should be mitigated across different sectors, projects, programs, and ideally not implemented as a standalone or parallel action to the response activity. This means that every project that we will receive will probably need to undergo a specific amount of modification to adhere to these standards. But in many other cases, we also have examples where the sectors have progressed a lot in this domain. Hence, the effort will not need to be as extensive. Next. Yes, we have two different groups, let's say, of the requirements versus the recommendations. And the requirements is a criteria that the partners will need to address in their proposals. This means that the projects, the proposals will be selected also based on the effort that they will put into addressing the environmental issues in humanitarian context. And on the other hand, we have another group of standards, which are basically just a set of recommendations and are actions that are encouraged. But for now, we are not making them mandatory because of their more ambitious nature. Both of the groups are divided under the cross-cutting and the sectorial ones. And the cash and voucher interventions will fall under the cross-cutting ones because obviously they can apply to different sector context, and hence we have decided to put them in this cross-cutting area. Next. So I will go very briefly through the requirements that address the cash and voucher assistance. So as explained, they are cross-cutting requirements, and the requirements say the project with cash and voucher assistance should ensure their contribution to environmental efficiency. But what does this mean? Next. So under the requirement, we only have one for the CVA. And it says that projects should include potential environmental and climate change impacts under the cash and voucher assistance risk and mitigation analysis. This means that environmental considerations should be included in the mitigation analysis at a minimum, and the environmental risks should be added and recognized as one of the risk categories. To make sure we actually spot the potential, the potential of negative effects through the cash and voucher assistance. Next. We have then 5 recommendations under the CVA, and the first one talks about including considerations in the programmatic tools. The second one, let's say, encourage partners to include environmental considerations in the minimum expenditure basket. And we will also talk about that in one of the breakout rooms later. The third one tries to promote continued monitoring of the environmental impacts that come into place because of purchases made through this type of response, which in many cases are not identified, but not because they're not identified, they do not harm the environment and the affected populations. The fourth one wants to prioritize financial service providers that do not invest in environmentally harmful sectors. And the last one, with the last one, we try to promote different complementary approaches attached to the cash and voucher assistance. Next. Now, just a couple of examples of activities that can have environmental benefits through cash transfers. Of course, the positive benefits are not limited to the ones showed here, but they can give an idea of also what we are promoting through our environmental, let's say, policy guidance. So we promote the use of cash for interventions for food assistance, of course, as opposed to in-kind distribution. We would like to see more support of local production and procurement. Next. We can also use cash for different, let's say, sectoral responses here. In this case, a shelter one, where we can use cash for, climate adapted shelter upgrades, cash for rent, but coupled with climate smart rehabilitation measures, or also renewable energy measures, and so on. Next. We would like to see more effort in using cash to support sustainable livelihood activities, small-scale farming, or other activities linked to agroecology. It can be a production of greener cooking fuels, involvement in solid waste recycling and repurposing initiatives, and so on. So all the activities that can help local and affected populations with their livelihoods, but at the same time also they have environmental outcomes. Next. Of course, cash can be used also for as cash for work to enable reforestation, afforestation efforts in different displacement settings. Here we have a couple of examples of reforestation efforts around refugee settlements, or reforestation efforts around communal facilities. So there are different approaches that we can use cash to actually rehabilitate natural areas that were affected or damaged because of a humanitarian response. Next. And I think that's the last slide. Finally, also using cash to support access to more efficient cooking stoves, or for the production or access to alternative cooking energy, as opposed to using firewood for cooking, which we all know that represents one of the most acute issues in humanitarian context, not only in terms of environment, but also in terms of health and in terms of protection issues. I think that's the end of my presentation. Jose, I don't know. Yes, no. We have also a couple of examples of unintentional negative impacts that cash interventions can have through our responses. And one of those is, of course, deforestation and overexploitation of natural resources, mainly linked to humanitarian sites and settlements. Different cash transfers, if not implemented correctly, may have negative consequences in the areas that we work, because of the use of firewood as cooking fuel, because of the activities linked to the construction, shelter sector. We know that if not enough monitoring and a proper analysis of the context that we respond, might have this type of consequences in the end without really wanting it. And that's why we also propose the requirements linked to the cash to address these unintentional negative impacts. And also we have examples where the cash was used to support unsustainable livelihood and agricultural activities. For example, there was cases of overuse of pesticides, fertilizers, cases of overgrazing, and of course overexploitation of water sources because of livestock. So all of these activities, if done properly and with a good risk analysis, can be actually can have a positive outcome in terms of environment. But if not, they can also actually exacerbate the natural resources in a specific area that we work. Thank you. I think that's it. Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Judith and Anya for this presentation. And I think it's a really good way of warming up, also the discussion with many examples and many kind of also some criteria that should be considered within the humanitarian assistance in general, but then also especially with the last point that you cover within the cash and voucher assistance space. So thank you very much. And well, I see obviously that there are some questions in the chat. The thing is that we don't have a lot of time, so we will keep those questions for the notes and see if we can answer maybe with once we are providing all the information that is being discussed today. But now we will be moving to the and let me share the screen so it is clear. We'll be moving to the breakout rooms now. Yes. So as I was saying, many thanks already for all those great discussion. That I believe that it really helped to clarify further what entails this cash, environment, and climate change space. I see also some experience that been shared in the chat, and hopefully in some studies also. So hopefully this is something that will also be useful. We are now moving into the second part of the event, that is this workshop mode. We'll be opening the 3 breakout rooms now, and now in reality, I mean, we couldn't really pre-assign according to what you were choosing in the registration, but now you should be able to assign yourself to the breakout rooms 1, 2, or 3. As you can see here, the first one is risk analysis, market assessment, and FSP, and will be moderated by Judith Yao. The second one is about MEB composition and environmental related needs, and it will be moderated by myself. And the third one, the third breakout room, is about using CVA and address climate change related crisis, and will be moderated by Anya Piljavec. We will be having in total around 22-23 minutes for the breakout rooms, so we will come back and have like a wrap-up discussion and then closing the event. So I think that all of you can choose your breakout room. I hope so. Okay, well, thank you very much. I hope I know that it was short, the time.
This was very short, Jose, very short.
I know. But still, I hope that the discussion were good. So now we still have, in reality, only like around 10-11 minutes to close the event. So, but it would be great to have like a quick wrap up from the facilitators, and I will again be sharing my screen very quick, so we can go breakout room by breakout room. So we can start with the first one. So over to you, Judith, for maybe 2-3 minutes kind of summary of the discussion that happened in your group.
I think we had a quite a good discussion, also probing people to participate. Sorry for that, teammates. But overall, we got a bit of some points. Let me Can you enlarge the font so I can read? You present in our notes, huh?
Then I can present the notes if you want, as you prefer.
Okay. No, it's okay. You don't have to. It's
No.
fine. So I think we did put some time into looking at the first questions in terms of how environmental considerations are incorporated or could be incorporated within the CVA project cycles, and including on the response of the program design. So there were some quite good suggestions, and some of the suggestions, just to mention, I think more pointing towards we really need to collect the evidence to showcase that not only saying that we want to promote cash, but actually ideally this is really not the point. We need to look at all the sectors, and we need to look at all the modalities and service provisions and see how we could, within those modalities or services, we could further promote the environment. So it's not only cash, but nevertheless we said that there's need to look into the evidence of how the cash modality fares, as opposed to comparing with vouchers, also comparing with in-kind. So at least we have a good evidence to say, you know, cash is the best for this sector or for this kind of support. So I think that was very clearly coming out. And also, again, in terms of when collecting or doing market analysis, really also focusing on the MFIs to also see what could be improved in terms of what are the good environmental practices that could be integrated. Again, one other challenges is also that this also has to be presented to the communities in a way that they do also understand how to also responsibly take action in terms of taking environmental consideration, which also benefits their communities and their environment. There was also a good example, or well, not really example, but observations from Sudan, South Sudan, actually, from past mission. And someone was really talking about we could also look into also small initiatives for CVS in terms of which also have an income generating element. And for example, in terms of recycling, the amount of plastic waste that comes whether with the humanitarian assistance or also within the market itself. So how could also these plastics be used as part of IGA? And also, again, in terms of a small farming, we also talked about the use of composting. So I think these are some aspects which could be integrated in the program designs if you're thinking about livelihoods or if you're thinking about the cash plus aspect. Again, very important to highlight again the need for authentic needs analysis, understanding what are the real needs, what is relevant, and what is the delivery mechanism. Another point that was also very important was doing in terms of talking of indicators, but also background checks for FSPs. And we could also think about the star rating of FSPs, so to understand what is it that they do, where they're putting their investments in, and how do we rate them, and not only for, and this is again more a collective intervention or rather a collective activity, which is relevant, which will provide relevant information for the whole humanitarian sector in a given country or in a given region, so they know exactly what options are there and what can their financial service providers are doing. Sometimes we might be limited in terms of choices. When you only have one financial service provider, you might have not have the luxury to to make all these choices. Again, someone was also talking about in the context of the current drought, which we are seeing in various parts of particularly in Africa, thinking about the post-recovery time and how cash could be used as part of the environmental rehabilitation. I didn't get a view that they are quite much, or we didn't have time to really look into actual good examples that are already happening. But I'm very sure there are partners that are doing 1 or 2, 3 things there that will be worth to really go wide and look into what are the existing examples.
Yeah, Judith, we need to we need to move to the next one. But in any case, even if you didn't finish, don't worry, because we will compile the notes and we will share everything. Okay. So I will move now in reality to breakout room number 3 to give time to Anya to debrief, and then I will debrief the breakout room number 2 and close. Go ahead, please.
Yes, very quickly. So we only discussed the challenges actually that are linked to the cash and voucher assistance in tackling climate change crisis in humanitarian settings. So everyone agreed, well, the majority of the participants agreed that the potential of cash, it's not really being used to tackle the root causes of climate change in humanitarian settings. And when we talk why that is, so the majority convened that one of the reasons is lack of knowledge, lack of capacity, but as I understood, not only so lack of the understanding of how to incorporate cash to respond to this specific need, but also the understanding of climate change effect as such, as opposed to the negative environmental impacts of a humanitarian response. Or there was this, I guess there is this general misinterpretation or confusion over things. So when we are responding and trying to make the humanitarian response greener, this is not necessarily also tackling climate change, at least not on a short term. Then it was a question of funding specific type of activities through cash that tackle these issues, while we have general funding, for example, for example, food assistance in specific context. We don't necessarily employ that funding through cash. We choose other modalities, while through cash we could actually or we might tackle also the problem of climate change and environmental degradation. Then we talked about accountability and the problem or the potential of climate change being mainstreaming concept, let's say. So it's a question of everyone involved, all the actors involved, to incorporate, let's say, this layer into our responses and be responsible on how we deliver a specific response, and not being lost in the saving the lives narrative. We are not now going to let's say update our tools to incorporate these considerations, because we have other priorities, saving lives. But in fact, by incorporating this consideration, we are saving lives, but probably on a longer term. So there is also this duality still among humanitarians to try to save lives on a short term versus the longer term.
Yeah, Annie, yeah, you were muted.
But I didn't mute myself. I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I don't
in
know
any
where
case, just 1 minute. We need to move to the just.
Yes, please go ahead. We can then collate the notes.
Okay, great, thank you. So just before from my side, before closing the event, because I know that we are already a bit late, many things were already mentioned in reality that we're discussing in the breakout number 2, that is specifically about MEB composition and environmental related needs. Just to mention that some of the aspects that were in terms of worries, right? Some of the aspects that were mentioned is that MEB obviously is one way in relation to consider environmental needs when it comes to CVA, but then how we make sure that in reality this is covered by the assistance, that the use also of the, especially in MPC assistance, that the use of the cash will be related to those environmental needs. So there are some level of question in this sense. There's another question is in fact how in reality we should be mainstreaming environmental needs. So it's not only about energy, or it's not only about shelter. It's about how we are making sure that we are mainstreaming all the environmental needs in the needs analysis, and we are putting also some level of measures in terms of making sure that those are kind of covered. We mentioned the possibility in some cases to provide vouchers, but we mentioned, and this was mentioned many times, the possibility of providing complementary programming, working about the mindset. And this includes working with the communities, include working with the governments in terms of making sure that the environmental aspects are being considered also when it comes to multi-purpose cash assistance. And then finally, how when we are kind of working from the needs perspective, we are including the needs when it comes to the analysis of assessment of the specific need of one population and the effect that the environment could be having in this population. For example, it was mentioned when it comes to displacement, but then also how people that may be displaced could be having also other needs that are also related to environment, And in some cases, especially when it comes to identification of needs, there is the aspect of being working beforehand, And this is related to anticipatory action also, So those are some of the aspects that were included. Well, we are now even a little bit late on the agenda. So just to conclude, first of all, many thanks for your participation, for everybody. Many thanks, especially also to DJ Echo for the collaboration, for kind of organizing and hosting this workshop that of course it was short for sure, but it was the idea of pushing further a little bit the discussion more than there is right now. We see that there are already agencies that are starting to include environment within the policies, within the CVA policies, and including CVA within the environmental procedures, so operations. So this is something that it could be considered already like a step forward. And we'll be sharing the recording and the comprehensive notes of the workshop. So key information that was shared through different means, also in the chat, that include key information, experiences, potential opportunities, and potential commitments also that we could be having as a humanitarian CVA community. And then, this discussion will continue within the Gas, Environment, and Climate Change Community of Practice that is right now hosted by the CAP network. So sign up for more updates, events, and information. I will drop my email. So in case, I know that many of you are already part of the community of practice, but in case you are not, just drop a line and we will add you into the mailing list. So thank you very much again to everybody, and it was a pleasure to have this space for discussion, and we'll have more in the future. So have a really good day. Bye.